Let me walk you through how I updated my downstairs with paint and trim to this modern, clean, and fresh look. To start off, I just had to clear out the space and get rid of the old, outdated carpet that was down. I removed the curtains and the hardware, and I don't think I'll be putting back up curtains. I didn't really like this look. Not sure what I'll put up instead, but I'll figure something out. Now, in removing all of the trim boards, you want to make sure to use a knife to cut the caulking from the edges. If you don't do this, the caulking will end up taking off your drywall. Now, this isn't the end of the world if this does happen. You can always patch it, but it'll just save you a lot of time if you cut it and end up not damaging that drywall. You can see I also use a spare board when using the pry bar. Again, this is just to make sure that you aren't damaging your drywall. Now, this old windowsill was really abused. It had marks all over it. Somebody had put tape on it, so I was really happy to remove it and get it updated. Now, I do like these blinds that I had up in the window, so I will be getting something like it to put back in the window once I'm done. Unfortunately, because this window will have trim on the inside, it's going to be a bit smaller and that window shade will no longer fit. I'm just going to go along and patch all the holes. I just need to let it dry and sand it before painting. The paint that I've used in most of my house is the Worldly Gray by Sherwin-Williams. I really like it because it has some beige undertones, but it is gray. One thing I think I would do differently is use a 50% tint to it so that it was just a little bit lighter. I'm using 1/2-inch thick trim for the inside of the window and sliding door. I'm using the table saw here to cut these boards to width. If these boards stick out too far, then the trim boards won't fit over the top of them. And if they're too far in, there's going to be a big gap between the boards and where they match up with the trim. Next, I move over to the compound saw to cut 45s so that these boards will have a picture frame look to them. Now, I am showing myself only doing this once, but I came in and pre-fit these boards about 192 times. I wanted to make sure that they fit in here perfect. So it's good just to come in numerous times, make small adjustments and small cuts. That way you don't have any gaps and it's going to have a nice tight fit in there. Once I had them exactly where I wanted them, I marked the back of them so I knew exactly where each board went. And here's a closer look at that picture frame style. And you can see that it's not perfect, but it's as close as I could get it. Then I moved on and I did the same exact thing with the slider door. Now, if at any point in my videos or my pictures it looks like my door is bowed at the top, it isn't. I just had to put the camera at a wide angle lens, and so it kind of distorts it just a bit. All right, once I got everything fit and I was happy with it, I moved everything out into the garage and I did 2 coats of paint. I painted them with a semi-gloss pure white paint. Now, as I said before, I marked all of these boards, so it made it really easy when I brought them in. I knew exactly which boards went where. May not seem like a big deal, but when they're fitting this tight, and this is old construction, so every side fits a little different, this does make a difference. Using 1-inch nails, I attached the boards in place. I chose the 1/2 inch thickness so that the window and door weren't too framed in. Thick enough so that when I put the trim boards on, there's a small reveal, but I also didn't want really thick trim that just crowded in on the window or the door. Choosing a trim look was not easy as there are so many. After looking at a ton of options, I found one that I liked. Then I had to choose how big to make it. I read that the general rule of thumb is that your baseboards should be 7% of your room height. Mine are 91 inches, so that means a 6-inch baseboard should be right. The general rule of thumb for trim is that it's half the size of the baseboards, so 3 inches. In the end, based on what I could find in the store, I went with baseboards that were 6 inches, and this will also be the same width for the top and the bottom horizontal trim boards. For the vertical trim boards, I went with a 3.5 inch. My horizontal trim boards also have a 3/4 inch overhang. Another thing to note is the board thickness. Lining up the boards exactly can be hard, and if not done right, it can look really bad. Every place my trim meets up, it's a different thickness, so that this is not a problem. My baseboards are 1/2 inch thick, the vertical boards are 5/8 inch thick, and the horizontal trim is 3/8 inch thick. Let me give you a closer look to show you what I mean. So you can see that these two boards are not flush. The bottom board is sticking out just ever so slightly. Next, you want to go through and putty all of the nail holes. Once this is dry, you'll just sand it and it's ready for a touch-up coat of paint. Make sure that you seal all of your seams with caulking. I prefer the toothpaste looking kind as I find it a lot easier than using the metal gun apparatus. This is a game changer though. Make sure, like I say, that you do every area, any place where you have the boards lining up and against the wall as well. This will make it just look like one seamless piece. Now I had one area of my trim where it overlapped my vent, and you can see it was not going to fit flush and was not going to look right. So I just marked it, and using a X-Acto knife here, I went in and had to cut from the top as well as from the back, cutting out just enough so that it would leave room for that vent, but also fit nice and tight. All right, with the baseboards all painted, I brought them in and got them all set up. I'll be using 1.5 inch nails to attach them to the wall, and using a stud finder, I'm just making sure that I am putting them into a stud. I've made the mistake before and not put them in a stud, and they don't stay up for long. I'm just patching up all the holes from the nails. Once it's dry, I will sand it and do my final paint. All right, on to the last and final paint here. From start to finish, this project took me a little over a week to finish. I'm sure it could have gone quicker, but with all the sports and activities that my kids have, a little over a week was good for me. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and it's amazing how something this simple, just some paint and some trim, can give your home a whole updated and new look. See you guys on the next video.